signed some executive orders. They were very important in just about every case.
As you can hear, President Trump's Sharpie pen is busy.
So that should take us to the forefront, right?
Absolutely.
But waiting on the other side of many of those executive orders will be this Black woman who will see the Trump administration in court.
I think it's important to know that litigation is an important piece of pushing back against this assault on our civil rights and civil liberties.
That's Deborah Archer, head of the ACLU, the organization with the pushback, shut down, fight back lawsuits.
So within hours of the executive order around birthright citizenship, we challenged that through litigation. We've also filed litigation challenging the termination of asylum application system.
Defending America in Blackland.
And now,
as a brown person, you just feel so invisible.
That's not fiction. Where we're from.
Brothers and sisters, I welcome you to this joyful day.
We celebrate freedom. Where we are.
Get on the ground!
I know someone heard something.
And where we're going.
We the people means all the people.
The Black Information Network presents Blackland with your host, Vanessa Tyler.
It feels all too much to take in. All the changes, flurry of executive orders. Thank goodness for people focused on the fight, like ACLU President Deborah Archer. Deborah, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
First, would you set the stage? What's going on in America right now?
Well, I think what most people is seeing is the destruction of our democracy and really the destruction of the infrastructure of civil rights and equality. There has been a flurry of executive orders and other actions that are challenging so many of the pieces of our communities and our government that have helped bring us to a place where we are more equitable, more inclusive, and more free, honestly. And we're seeing it dismantled piece by piece. But what I've been heartened to see is the way that we are fighting back in communities around the country, organizations, nonprofit organizations, individuals, really fighting for what's important to us and to our people.
Now, many of those executive orders end in court, right?
Some of them do, but we're not going to be able to litigate our way out of this problem. We have to build our way out of the problem. But litigation is certainly a primary tool, and it's on the front line. So people would have seen over the past 3 weeks, lots of litigation filed, attempting to slow down, to stop, to ameliorate some of the worst harms that we're going to see coming out of these executive orders. And the ACLU has been one of those organizations. So within hours of the executive order around birthright citizenship, we challenged that through litigation. We've also filed litigation challenging the termination of asylum application system. We are challenging the executive order that is expanding expedited removal nationwide. We are challenging the executive order that declared an invasion at the U.S.-Mexico border. We're also challenging the executive order that's directing all federal agencies to take steps to stop the provision of gender-affirming medical care for transgender people under 19 years old, and to stop that harm and that damage to those families that are seeking important medical care for their children. We are challenging the executive order that is not allowing X as a gender marker on passports. We filed an action seeking access to counsel for individuals who are transferred from immigration custody in the U.S. to the naval base on Guantanamo Bay. And we have filed freedom of information law requests related to DOJ's access to sensitive government records. We want to make sure we're fighting to protect confidential, personal, financial, healthcare, and other sensitive government-held records of Americans.
A lot of your power certainly is in the courtroom, but can we rely on judges to keep American democracy? And will the administration listen to these judges?
Well, I don't know the answer to that second question. I certainly hope that the rule of law will prevail. It's an important um, piece of our governmental structure, that we have courts that are there to define constitutional limits and to enforce our laws. And we have a Congress and an executive function that's supposed to respect the rules and orders of our court. I think a lot of people are worried because our courts are more conservative than they have been in a long time. Donald Trump appointed a lot of judges during his first term in office, and those judges are there and tend to be more conservative and less open to respecting and expanding the protections for civil rights and civil liberties. But Barack Obama and Joe Biden also appointed a lot of federal judges, and they're there as well to uh, review these cases and to evaluate civil rights and civil liberties. And it's also important to note that we've won, the ACLU has won cases before Trump judges before his last term. We've won cases before a conservative Supreme Court. So we should not think that the courts are lost. We are going to fight in the courts, use every tool that we have to defend our democracy and our civil rights. We shouldn't give up any tool and assume that it won't be there for us.
What about these DEI reversals? Is there a legal solution there to reverse the reversals?
We're exploring options to challenge some of the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion measures. We have used similar tactics and explored similar challenges when we were looking at legislation that people were calling things like anti-woke legislation that were attacking critical race theory teaching. So we're looking at whether or not there are First Amendment challenges there, whether there are equal protection challenges, challenging people because of their race, challenging programs because of people's right to free speech and First Amendment. We're looking at due process arguments as well. So we are certainly exploring our options.
I want to ask about the Supreme Court. There's been so much trust lost there. And I'm wondering whether we can really rely on the high court. I know it's conservative leaning, and you mentioned earlier that you've had some wins. But in the long run, with all this litigation, which I understand they're hoping to push it up to the Supreme Court ultimately, how much can Americans really rely on them at this point?
I think we shouldn't lose faith in the Supreme Court. As I mentioned, we've had, as the ACLU cases go up to the Supreme Court, involving voting rights, involving attempts to add a citizenship question to the census, around separation of children from their families as they migrate into this country. And we've had successes before the court. And so we're going to push forward, put forward our best case, and demand that the Supreme Court protect our civil rights and our civil liberties. And we'll do that in all levels of federal court. But again, I don't think that we believe that litigation is going to fix everything. Litigation certainly is not the only tool that we have and use as an organization. It is not the only tool that people who want to fight to protect civil rights and civil liberties have at their disposal either. So we should use everything. So yes, we're going to be in court. We're going to have faith that the Supreme Court is going to uphold the law, and we're going to be able to enforce the law. But we're also advocating with state and local governments. There's incredible power in state and local governments to step in to the breach that's been left by the federal government in terms of protecting civil rights and civil liberties. And we're going to work with those state and local governments to try to fill those spaces. There's power in our communities for people in communities around the country to stand up and demand that their elected officials enforce our laws, enforce our Constitution. They push back against overreach in the attempts to expand executive power beyond what was envisioned by our Constitution and our founders.
Another one of the many hats you wear is as Associate Dean at the NYU School of Law. Has NYU also changed the way Black students are admitted?
NYU looks at students holistically. They look at their undergraduate GPA. They look at their admissions test in law school. It's the LSAT. They look at their essays and their letters of recommendation, how rigorous their curriculum was, and they look at the student holistically. And for a lot of our students, race really tells the story of who they are and how they got to be where they are. Race tells a story of obstacles that they've had to overcome. So we have always looked at students holistically, and I think we are continuing to look at students holistically.
Part of your work also involves preparing the next generation of lawyers. What must they know now that you didn't have to know when you were in law school?
I do this work in part so that my children don't have to fight the same fights that I fought. And I do my law teaching, hoping that the students that I am able to teach and have the opportunity to mentor won't have to fight the same fights that I've had to fight. And unfortunately, I see that they are in a position where they are relitigating some of the things that I litigated um, as a young attorney. And so I'm hoping first to give them a sense of hope. They have to know that a better future is possible, that we have to break down these large, overwhelming problems into their constituent parts and figure out how we can move forward in a way that is going to result in a better tomorrow. So none of the problems that we are facing have a quick fix. We are not going to be able to reverse all the damage that we're seeing from these executive orders overnight. We're not going to be able to reverse the damage in the next 2 years or 4 years. It's a long-term plan. And so I'm helping our students understand how they have to be planning not only what are they going to do today to minimize the harm, to stop the immediate harm, but what are they going to do tomorrow and a year from now and 10 years from now to rebuild our communities and to lay the foundation and the tracks that are going to lead us to a more equitable, more just future for them and for their children. I have a mentor who is amazing, and he tells me to remember that we're all sitting in the shade of trees we did not plant and drinking from wells we did not dig. And so I am trying to teach my students to get up every day and to dig wells and plant trees.
Even if they may not see the benefit of it in their lifetime.
That's right, because I believe that each and every day I'm fighting for a future that I may never live to see, but I know is possible.
You're also a Yale graduate and have written extensively on the benefits of diversity in law schools, a benefit not just to the Black student, benefits for the school too, and the entire student body. Would you expand upon that a little?
We shouldn't assume that the law is neutral. The law is influenced by the environment, by the ecosystem in which it is written and in which it's applied. And race is certainly a part of that ecosystem. And so we want to make sure we bring together people from a diverse array of backgrounds, lived experiences, and communities to talk about, to engage, to have conversations, to critique, to think about how law will play out. A lot of what we are seeing today around the country is a reaction to a country that is more diverse and more inclusive than it has ever been. And people are uncomfortable with that. And people are trying to push back and fight against that, trying to shut down all of the pipelines to opportunity that we have created. And that includes affirmative action and DEI programs. Those were things that opened up opportunity, that made our system more equitable, more open, more fair. It helped us remove some of the criteria that really just magnified inequality. And we're seeing those opportunities and those programs that created access being torn apart.
Deborah Archer is also an author. Her latest book, Dividing Lines: How Transportation Infrastructure Reinforces Racial Inequality.
I would like to say that Dividing Lines helps us understand the history of civil rights. As the civil rights movement began to win victories and segregationists could no longer consistently rely on the law to enforce racial hierarchy, communities around the country began to rely on transportation infrastructure, highways, public transportation, roads, even sidewalks, to do the work of oppression that they could no longer depend on the law to do. So ultimately, Dividing Lines is a book about how adaptive, creative, and resilient racism is. Those who love yesterday will always fight against tomorrow, and they're good at it. And this book is a story about how we have allowed racism to adapt and evolve in our transportation infrastructure to help white communities fight against tomorrow.
So as America enters this new world, emphasized in the president's inaugural speech,
The golden age of America begins right now.
will that golden glow shine on many or just a select few?
During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
It's a never-ending battle, but we know ACLU president, author, and NYU Law School Associate Dean Deborah Archer is on the front lines. Deborah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Go to the website aclu.org for more, and for the book Dividing Lines, How Transportation Infrastructure Reinforces Racial Inequality, go to www.norton.com. I'm Vanessa Tyler. Join me next time on Blackland. A new episode drops every week. Be sure to like and subscribe.